We're going to talk about three very vital, necessary components of greenhouse environments. And this begins in the manual on page 8, and this will be the basis for these next few sessions of our course. Here's the first one. Three components of a greenhouse environment. The spirit of willingness. This is a church that takes faith-filled risk to give itself away. This is the church that says it's not perfect, but we believe we're being called to do this, and it's the church that is willing to take those faith-filled risks. Secondly, it's a strategy, and we'll talk about that in the days ahead. The strategy is to have a very clearly defined leadership development pathway. We'll learn together that this doesn't have to be real fancy, but it should be clear, and it should be articulated so that the leader knows what they're doing and what they're shooting for. And I think that's possible for any church, any size, and it's possible for any individual leader to have that pathway in their mind in order to develop a leader. Thirdly, we'll talk about the structures of a greenhouse environment. That is, having the framework, in a sense, of that greenhouse that holds it together. Some of these are the structures you'll need in a church environment in order for this thing to work. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy, but it should be solid and thought out and articulated. Let me take you through some key passages that'll help as we talk about the spirit of willingness of a greenhouse in a church that gives itself away. We've looked at this passage already, Acts 11:27 through 30. Antioch responded to the need that they saw in Judea, and they gave an offering. They did something with what they have. And then in Acts 13, again, as we've discussed, this sets them up to send someone. They send Paul and Barnabas to start on the missionary journeys that move the church from the area of Jerusalem throughout the world. We're still on that journey that they started. 1 Corinthians 3:6, Paul writes, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. As we plant churches, as we develop leaders, as we send leaders, some will plant, some will go, some will stay and send. One plants, another waters, but it's always God who does it. It's always God who causes the growth. It's always God who gets the credit. Hebrews 11:6. We've also discussed this brief but so important passage. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. So we need to be sure that we're not trying to figure out ways to not have faith. We need to be wise and prepared and also active in our faith. Luke 16. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. So as you do the best you can as a leader or as a church, the best you can with what you have to serve someone else, God tends to put more within our care. Sometimes I joke about churches. I'm kind of a child of the early 80s and late 70s, so I'll joke about some churches being like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And that goes along with the thought that why would God send leaders that he wants to be developed to our churches if he knows they'll be like, they'll get in there and they'll never get out? So anyway, forget that I just said that last part and we'll move on. John 6:1 through 14, this is the little boy, or the boy I should say, with his lunch that he gives him the lunch, and the Lord takes that and blesses it. And it's that way for us as well. And at this part, I'd like to again give you some time either to talk online or type online or discuss it in the groups that you're in. We'll figure out how to do that. We'll insert something in here that helps you and discuss the benefits and the costs of planting a church. And you'll see the benefits and costs on page 9 and page 10 of your greenhouse manual. So rather than take you through all that, I'll have you look at that on your own, take a few moments to do that, and discuss these questions. What do you think are the most joyful parts of equipping and sending another person? What are the most difficult parts of this? So look at the benefits and the costs.